Why am I hungry when I just ate? See what I mean now about all of the amazing books that I read? Hi sweet cheekies! Welcome back to my channel. Today I am filming a very late video for you all. I have been in the worst ever reading slump and also just going through a lot in my personal life considering I haven't been reading much this year. It's currently September and I've read 12 books. Anyway, so I thought I would go through what I read last year because I had a lot of success last year. I had many 5-star reads. So you're in for a treat. So the first book that I read last year was Stripped by Momo Chavez. I know Momo through Chloe Bunny and I picked this up to support a friend of a friend. It is a fiction novel about the secret life of a stripper. It goes through the highs and lows of stripping and the sex work industry in general. It's a very realistic depiction of sex work. It is a sex positive story about feminism, friendship and family. It really goes into the culture of sex work and how that is to date within the sex work industry as well. I thought this was a really awesome book. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. But yeah, pick this up if that sounds like a bit of yada. The next book that I read was A Torch in the Night, the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. I listened to the audiobook for this one, which is why I don't have it with me. I actually gave it a 5 stars. I read the first and the second one. I read the first book the year before and gave it a 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed this book. It was very good, very gripping, very fast-paced, very intricate. I really liked the magic. It was very intriguing. The characters really gripped me. I also got my mum onto this book and my mum is quite like, you know, she's not picky but like she's selective about what she reads. She only reads every so now and again and she was obsessed with these books, so take it from her, I guess. It is set in a terrifyingly brutal Rome-like world and surrounds an epic fantasy around an orphan who is fighting for her family and a soldier who's fighting for his freedom. When Leia's brother is arrested for treason, Leia goes undercover as a slave to try and get him back. I thought this story was gripping. However, I will say if you are a romantasy person, like you like romance with a splash of fantasy, then you may not enjoy this one as much. It is a very fantasy plot focused rather than like romance focused, but I thought it had enough to keep me going, you know? The next book that I read was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This is Britney Spears' memoir. I read this as part of the Difficult Women Book Club in Sydney, which is now the Read Like Her Book Club, I believe. I gave it a 4.75 stars. It was very good. I still think about it to this day and I have a very like newfound appreciation for Britney and everything that she's been through. She's a trillion icon and everything that she's been through deserves to be told. I would say this memoir is for you if you enjoy something that's fast-paced, about reclaiming your voice after being silenced. Also, if you're somebody like me who didn't really know much about Britney prior to this, I would highly recommend picking it up. I think there's something in this book for everybody. I will say that it is ghost-written by a man, so I did have some qualms about a few things, but overall I really enjoyed this one. The next book that I read was Be Not Afraid of Love by Mimi Zhao, Lessons on Fear, Intimacy and Connection. This book is on lend to my boyfriend at the moment. I'll put a clip in here of me flipping through the book a little bit. I have it beautifully annotated and some of my friends have also borrowed this book and annotated themselves. I find it to be a really emotional, gripping, vulnerable and like highly reflective work. It's really, really beautiful. If you're a fan of Bell Hooks or Brene Brown, I think you would really love this book. It's really, really incredible. It also has beautiful art throughout the whole book. It is a stunning and provocative book that will guide you and inspire you to lean into love with softness and bravery, and it's really awesome. I highly recommend check that one out. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. The next book I read was the third book in the Ember in the Ashes series. It is called A Reaper at the Gates. I also listened to this on audiobook. I gave it 4 stars. This is where the series kind of went downhill for me. It didn't feel like there was any hope left in this book and I kind of was getting a bit bored with the constant beating and battling of these characters. They didn't have any reprieve. There were like not enough balance between the good and the bad moments. It was just constant, like these characters were just like beaten down, and while I understand that as a story about survival, it was losing me, unfortunately. So this one I gave 4 stars, and Spoiler alert, the next book I read and DNF'd it, unfortunately. You might have better luck than I do though. The next book that I picked up was Consent Laid Bare by Chantel Contos, Sex, Entitlement and the Distortion of Desire. I picked this up because she was on Abby Chatfield's podcast and I thought she was quite interesting and she seemed cool. I also really love the cover. However, if you can't tell by my voice, I was very disappointed by this book. I enjoyed the first half and then I found out it is a swerve book. If you don't know what that means, it means a sex work's exclusionary feminist. Personally, I believe that sex work is work, and the only reason I haven't got rid of it or donated it is because I don't really want anyone else to read it. That's the honest truth of it. Moving on. The next book that I read was The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is a timeless classic as far as I know. I started the book physically and then I finished it on an audiobook because I was reading it for a book club that I'm part of. I rated it 4 stars. This book surrounds Black women resilience within the early 20th century. It is a very character-driven book. It's very raw, emotional, and surrounds around Southern brutality, but essentially follows 2 sisters, Celie and Nettie, and weaves a story about resilient and courageous women. If you haven't heard about this, where have you been? I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Astro Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. It is a romantic fiction, fluffy romance novel, as you will. It is the second book in a 3-part sapphic series of surrounding a group of 3 friends. She is an interior designer and she's asked to come on board for a renovation of an inn. It's set in a small town and she is in close proximity to the main carpenter of the project, Jordan. It is also an enemies to lovers, which I really love. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. Yeah, so pick this one up if you're interested. Now, this next book is the absolute star of the fucking show. One of my favorite books I've read to date. It is called A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. It is a dual POV book between a mother and a daughter. The mother who grew up in Palestine in 1990, who is in an arranged marriage and they migrate to America, and follows her 18-year-old daughter Daya, Brooklyn, 2008. The story goes back and forth between the 2 povs and uses it wonderfully. I loved this book. It was an absolute 10 out of 5 stars for me. I'll literally never ever forget this book. It was so good. It also has a mystery in it as well, and I highly recommend it. Really, pick this one up. The next book that I picked up was Kim Jong-un, born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju. This one's quite a short book. This book is about institutional oppression and misogyny in South Korea. It is a feminist contemporary fiction that dissects the slow erosion of self under everyday gender expectations. It's also a movie which I do want to pick up as well, but honestly, groundbreaking. I really loved this book. It was subtle but so powerful. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, I've misplaced. It's A Visit to Fairyland by Shirley Barber. I recently picked this up secondhand. It was part of my childhood, as Shirley Barber is, I know, for so many people, and I was rereading it for a bit of nostalgia. I also hadn't read in a little bit and I just needed that easy children's book nostalgic vibe. The art is fucking amazing. I'll put some on the screen, but I love Shirley Barber. I really want to get a tattoo for Shirley Barber. Yeah, really fucking awesome. 5 stars. The next book that I read is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I really loved this. It is a second chance romance, which I'm not usually into, but this was so good. These two knew each other growing up, where they had very different childhoods and very different experiences. There was a miscommunication that happened, and you see them revisiting each other and just feeling like nothing has changed, but everything has changed, and it was so beautifully woven. She is an author as well, which is super inspiring. It was emotionally rich, sensual, and I actually picked up the audiobook for this one as well, and the narrators are incredible. I gave this a 4.75 stars. The next book that I read is Gone Girl. Would you believe I have never read this? I've also never seen it, and not only that, I've never been spoiled. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into, guys. Absolutely no fucking idea. And I need to stop saying that I'm not into horror, because I am into horror. Bunny is one of my favorites. Gone Girl, one of my favorites. I need to pick up more Gillian Flynn because she is incredible. incredible. The way she writes, I was absolutely gripped. It is full of toxic mind games, deeply unreliable narrators. If you have never been spoiled for this and you've never read it, pick it up. Pick it up. Also, if you've seen the movie and you like the movie, pick it up, because the book is 10 times better. 10 times better. And I loved the movie, you know, so good. See what I mean now about all of the amazing books that I read? The next book that I read, it was another audiobook called Sex Therapy 1 Sessions with Chantal Otten. It is a Audible exclusive. It is technically a podcast, but I count it as a book because it technically is one. If it's on Audible, it's technically a book, in my opinion. Also, the next book that I read is Sex Therapy 2 Sessions with Chantal Otten. So both of these are essentially the same. They are recordings of real life sex therapy that Chantal Otten has with real life people. It's kind of like if you've ever seen couples therapy on SBS, that, but like sex therapy specific. It also has like just a bunch of diverse voices, and it's really intriguing. Honestly, I would re-listen to it. It was so good. I gave them both 5 stars. The next books that I read were some of the Pearly in the Park books from 1 to 7 by Wendy Harmer. First book, Pearly in the Park, Pearly and the Big Doll, Pearly and Opal, Pearly and the Lost Handbag, Pearly and Jasper, Pearly and the Christmas Angel, Pearly and Great Aunt Garnet. These are books from my childhood. They are set in Australia. I fucking love fairies, and I wanted to just have an easy, good time reading these, and they feel good, and I enjoyed them. I still have the rest of the series to read, but they were a nice end to last year. The next book that I read was Clean by Livy Blake. This was a fun Malfoy Hermione fan fiction. I have been previously not really into Malfoy and Hermione as a ship in general because I love Ron, he is my baby, but I just wanted something a little bit fun, a little bit fresh. I don't know. I just was feeling silly goofy and I really wanted to pick this up. I really enjoyed it. I loved being back at Hogwarts but not supporting the smelly stinky turf. I gave this book a 3.75 stars. It was good. It was gripping. I finished it pretty quickly. I also picked up Manacled. I picked up that and I was like, are you guys okay? Anyways, I would recommend this one if you're into Hermione fanfictions. The next book that I read was Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. I read this one as an audiobook. It came recommended to me as a sapphic horror. I clearly was in my horror era, but I really enjoyed this. It kept me on my toes. I finished it. It was gripping. I gave it a 4 stars. It was about this girlie who goes to a market every weekend and sells her cakes, and her love interest visits her at the market and hopes and prays to see her, and then one day she gets invited over and some weird things begin to happen. I gave Bloom 4 stars. The second last book that I read I also don't own. I gave it to my stepdad as a Christmas gift and I wanted to read it before I gifted it to him, so I did. It's called Rock Pools in Sydney by Amanda Woods. It goes through all of the rock pools in Sydney, what their histories are, where they are, a bit of backstory into them. I thought it was very fascinating and I would really love to go visit a lot more of them. Growing up in Sydney, I've kind of taken them for granted, but they're actually a product of colonization because when the British came over to Australia, they couldn't swim in the oceans, so they created ocean pools. I didn't learn that from this book, by the way, but it's still an interesting read and the photography is really beautiful. I gave Rock Pools in Sydney 4.75 stars. The last book that I read in 2024 is one of my all-time favorite books. I need to buy a physical copy because I listened to the audiobook, but I recommend the audiobook. It is none other than I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. What an incredible book. It is about a girl who is stuck in an underground bunker with 40 other women and their lives never knowing and understanding what a patriarchal society is and never understanding and remembering their past lives before they were stuck in this bunker. It's a gripping story about humanity, what makes us human, why we exist on this earth. It's also a dystopian. It was phenomenal. I loved this book and I recommend it to everybody who I speak to. So pick that one up if you want. I Who Have Never Known Men got a 5-star for me, rounding my year off with a bang. That is all from me. I hope you enjoyed the books that I read last year. I know I did. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice time with it. Bye bye. No.